Nikki the moment? Okay. Wonderful. Good morning and welcome to the July 26, 2023 meeting of the Lextran Board of Directors. My name is Jill Barnett and I am the Lextran General Manager, and I would like to turn the meeting over to our Chair, Mr. Harding Dowell.
Thank you, Jill. We'll call this meeting to order and we will call the roll. Dr. Acapo is absent. Mr. Schoninger?
Here.
Ms. Boris Gonzalez?
Here.
Mr. Motley is absent. Mr. Ward is absent. Judge Thurston?
Present.
And Vice Chair Rogers?
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. We will continue. Is there any public comment for today? Seeing none, we're glad the rest of you are here. We'll move to approval of the June 2023 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review, and are there any questions or edits? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I would make a motion.
Judge Thurston makes a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Boris Gonzalez seconds. Is any in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Thank you very much. And let's see, for the chair's report, I normally skip right over this, but today I've got something to say. And first, as has been announced, today is sadly the last day for our esteemed General Manager, Jill Barnett. In the interim time, the board, and specifically me, has met with TransDev. For those of you watching at home who might be unaware, the general manager and assistant general manager for Lextran are provided to us by our contract with TransDev, a private transit operating entity. So I've spoken with their regional management. The process of finding Jill's replacement is ongoing, and we have a tentative schedule to try to complete that by the end of the next month. In the time between Jill's last day and the new person's first day, an interim is in the process of being established to keep things on the rails, though I have all the faith in our excellent management team that they'll be just fine. But that at least provides some continuity of service from TransDev's side. So then I want to talk about Jill. I started bugging Jill about being on this board in, I think, 2018. And I started on this board in August of 2020, and she started as general manager in September of 2020. And so we've been learning this together, and I have sincerely appreciated all of her patience with me as what is really just a transit junkie, I think is how I describe it. But to learn me up in the ways of how this entity and how this board really works. Since that time, Jill has led this agency through a couple of very interesting years. And first and foremost, she has led our agency's COVID response, always ensuring the safety of our workforce and the safety of our riders, even through those days when we thought no one might ever ride the bus again. She led the transition of our paratransit services from the Red Cross into its new for-profit entity with no service interruption, and I know that process was time-sensitive and stressful at times. On a happier note, she has had an exemplary grant record and has led a team that has helped modernize our fleet, move it towards renewables and more clean fuels by winning. Are we undefeated in the last 18 months? I'm not sure if we've lost any, but we've won a lot.
Let's go with it.
We'll go with undefeated. And she's kept this agency financially healthy, and it moves into the new year with capital funds and a robust reserve. And she has kept Lextran at the forefront of Lexington's future planning, which is the thing that I'm perhaps most excited about, through things like Imagine Nicholasville Road and continuing to work with the MPO and making sure that transit has a voice in Lexington's future. She's, as I mentioned at the top, cultivated an excellent management team, and I know that no matter who succeeds her, we are in good hands. So, Jill Barnett, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think that's my first chair's report since being chair.
It was a very good one, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Necessary, for sure. We will move then into our monthly performance report and financials.
All right.
Mr. Combs.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how I'm going to follow that up. But we do have some exciting news to share from June. First we start with our mission statement. We serve people in our community with mobility solutions. June did mark the end of the fiscal year 2023. We had a total fixed route ridership of more than 3.4 million trips. That was an increase of about 28% from last fiscal year. I have some more notes about ridership and KPIs from the fiscal year a little later on. But also our risk management and operations departments hosted an employee cookout. It was great to see Jason and John out there manning the grill. Those are always a good event, good times. I think everybody really enjoys themselves when we have those. We participated in the Lextran area MPO certification review process. That is not unlike our triennial review or comprehensive review. We had representatives from the FTA and FHWA, and we provided a bus tour of major transportation projects in the region. I'm happy to say that the Lextran area MPO had a very good report, and they passed their certification review with flying colors. And lastly, we deployed an updated version of our CAD-AVL software through Avail. That gave our staff some new tools, but the big improvement there was the back-end security features that might not be as noticeable in the day-to-day operations, but they're very important as well. There is some additional plans to convert us from FleetNet, that's Avail's ERP system, to their new ETMS platform. That's going to happen later on in the summer. But that's not to be confused with the larger CAD-AVL RFP that we will be working on soon, where we'll have the opportunity to see what else is on the market and make sure that Avail is truly the platform that fits us the best. So a few commendations for June. First, I'm visually impaired and wanted to thank Jaquan Mitchell, a bus operator, for always being so kind and helpful when I catch his bus. Halima Williams, a bus operator, is a good person. She's very respectful and observant. She doesn't pass up anyone. She is a great employee to have. And additional commendations were received for Sharnetta Williams, a bus operator, and Jordan Anderson, also a bus operator. So to jump into ridership, in June it was about 225,000. And as I mentioned before with the Avail upgrade, there is a little bit of data loss that happened in June. And that will be investigated further when we do our audit. So every year for the NTD, which is the National Transit Database, we do an audit of our ridership and our other KPIs to make sure that the information that's coming out of our passenger counters is accurate. I wouldn't expect June to change all that much with the data loss through the conversion. We did it on a Saturday night, so maybe a couple of thousand trips here and there, but I think 225,000 is probably pretty close to the real number. What's interesting, though, if you look at this chart and step back from the fiscal year, it's really a first half of the fiscal year versus the second half. If you follow the green line, which is our monthly ridership, we were ahead of where we were the previous year, but under that average ridership line, then at the beginning of the calendar year in January, that flips. And our monthly ridership caught up with the average ridership from the past few years. So that's an interesting story on the fixed route side. On the paratransit side, the story is more of the transition to our ATP Dev, which happened in October, and you see the ridership sort of slid down close to 10,000 trips per month in December. But since then, we've slowly and steadily started to climb back, and in June, we were at about 13,000 trips. Looking at that as the percent change relative to monthly average, you can sort of see the first half of the year versus the second half of the year play out here on the fixed route, and then that decrease into December, and then slow, gradual increase into June on paratransit. For system productivity, on fixed route for the fiscal year, we were at about 737,000 trips ahead of where we were last year, and about 22,000 trips under on paratransit. So total for the system-wide, we were at 3.6 million this fiscal year combined, and 2.9 million last year. I would also like to show the productivity metrics, trips per mile, trips per hour. We were ahead of last fiscal year on both systems, and that's a very important metric to follow, as well as the on-time performance, which we were at 92% in June on fixed route. That is, for the fiscal year, we were at 89%, so just slightly less than where we were last year at 90%. On paratransit, we were at 80.6% in June. And we've talked about on-time performance on paratransit for the last several months. I want to point out the low point of the fiscal year was 47%. So that goes to show how much, how much real recovery and work has been done on the paratransit side. That 80.6 is the highest since the RATP Dev has taken over operations. For safety, our rate of 1.68 for the fiscal year did come in less than what it was last year for preventable accidents. However, on paratransit, we were a little bit higher than what we were last year. On injury frequency rate, again, we were a little higher on fixed route than where we were last year. A lot of that was the first month of the fiscal year. We had an extra, abnormal number of injuries, and we never were really able to catch up throughout the year. You can see that again in the workers' compensation claims. We had 7 more this year than we did last year. And on maintenance, we operated 9,602 miles between roll calls in June. That puts our number for the fiscal year at 9,429, and that's about 700 miles more than what we did last year. And that's a really impressive number, so kudos to Chris and his team for improving that. Our preventive maintenance inspections, 100% for the fiscal year, with 57 completed on time in June. So that is the end of the performance report. Happy to answer any questions. If there are none, I'll pass it on to Nikki for the financials.
One thing I just want to draw attention to, which is in the summary, but I don't think you maybe mentioned, or if you did, I didn't hear it, sorry, is that the number of complaints that we received on both systems went down by double digits, which I think is a real testament to our customer service team and also to just the overall performance of the operating team. So kudos to them.
Thank you.
And so talk to me more about, the Avail system upgrade. This is just my naiveness of how it counts passengers. Is that what?
It does.
Tell me a little bit more about.
So there's sensors on both doors, front and back door, and there's 2 infrared beams. If you brake it in one direction, you're aboard. If you brake on the other direction, you're in a lot. So you get on or off. And we do annual audits to make sure that those sensors are working correctly. We will take the numbers. If I see that there are 246 people on a bus, that's probably not an accurate count. But we can see those, on a stop-by-stop basis throughout the system. And that's part of the audit. So we just try to make sure that the numbers that we see are reasonable, accurate, and if not, there's methods that we have that are approved through the FTA to estimate how much ridership we probably would have counted had the system worked correctly.
And I want to add, Fred said we do an annual audit. We do an annual audit that we are required to check, but we are looking at those numbers and sort of auditing that on a more regular and ongoing basis so that, if there's a problem, we're not waiting until the end of the year to discover that. We can see that information in real time.
The APCs themselves have to be certified by the FTA. And we've been through 2 certification processes in the last 6 years or so.
And so the system was upgraded this month.
Yes.
And so that's why when you were talking about it may shift those numbers, but that's pretty accurate.
Again, there might be a couple of thousand trips, but for the most part, that's going to be pretty close. And we'll do the total annual audit heading into October. That's when everything is due to see what we think the true number is. It won't change much.
And so other than that reason, is there any other reason of our average, this dip below the average, this month dip below the average?
No, everything looks fairly steady on the daily ridership totals. So I think it's just sort of where we fell. I didn't see anything that was alarming or any trends that would really concern me.
Yeah. It's harder to see on this, but if you flip back to your slide, it was pretty minor.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're saying pretty close for since December
Since about January, we've been pretty close. Yeah.
to the average.
And so moving forward, what's going to happen is that average ridership line will incorporate the data from the last year. So it's going to continually to grow up. So our target's going to keep moving up.
Absolutely. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
For our financial report, we have Nikki Falkenberry, our Director of Finance, to give us that.
Good morning. We will look at the balance sheet for the month ending June 30th, which is also the end of the fiscal year. If you'll note, the financials are marked as unaudited, which means that we still have some entries to make between now and the time the auditors leave. We have some entries with the work in process, that's the grant funding. I'll be moving some of that funding up to accounts receivable, where we'll receive that in July. but it was for the month of June. So we'll just be doing some adjustments there. And then when we get the entry from the auditors, we'll change the long-term pension asset. Everything else should remain fairly the same. You'll see those final numbers in the audit when we present that. So we've already been working hard on the audit, and they will begin the second week in August. So we have a lot of work to do in the next month. But our operating cash at the end of June was $38 million, which is very exciting. I want to note, though, that we will not see very much cash come in between now and the month of November for our property tax. So we will, you may see that go down some in the next couple of months, but we do have the bulk of our money for the property tax coming in November. The revenues and expenses, as we stated, this is unaudited, but these numbers should not change, if at all, just a tiny bit. Property taxes, we came in at $22.7 million. We had budgeted right at $21 million, so that came in over budget. It came in it's about 8% over the previous year. Passenger revenue is looking really good. We came in $178,000 over budget. We didn't know what to expect. It was very hard to imagine. Fred and I came up with a lot of numbers looking at revenue for last year, so we're very, very happy that we came in over budget. The federal funds, as we mentioned, those are our regular 5307 or 5339 for buses, things like that. That also includes some of the COVID relief money, which we will have one more draw of that in the new fiscal year, but most of that funding has already been drawn down. Our state funds, we have $1.2 million to match our 5307 and 5339 grants. And our advertising revenue, we budgeted, and our contract is for $260,000. Anything over that, we get money for that, so we ended up with $355,000. So we were very happy to see that. That's a huge increase over the last 3 years during COVID and everything, so we're happy to see that going back up to where it should be. Our expenses, we did really well. We stayed under budget in our wages and fringe. Professional services, our materials and supplies, which is our bus parts, was over a little bit, and we expected that because of the increasing cost of the bus parts. But everything else is looking really good. We estimated the paratransit expense before we were in an open RFP when we did the budget, so we stuck with the old number of 5.2, but we had a number in our mind where we thought we would be, and it was right at $8 million. And we came very close to that, so we are looking really good at this point. Our diesel fuel cost is 2.51 for the monthly average and 3.33 for the yearly average. And then diesel gallon equivalent for the CNG is $1.69. So we're still very happy to have CNG. For our new budget, we budgeted $4.25 for diesel, so we should be looking good for the new fiscal year. So. But I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a question about the advertising revenue. You mentioned we get money for that. How does that structure work exactly?
We have a contract, and we get a percentage. I think it's 50/50.
It's 50/50 for anything over the annual guarantee.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the $260,000 that you see in the budget is an annual guarantee.
Okay.
And then anything that they sell above and beyond that, the revenue split is 50/50.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because the contract, it's really a turnkey contract.
Uh-huh.
They sell the ads, print the ads, manage the inventory. We're really just providing the asset, and they come on the property and take care of all of that. It's hard to know as the year is going on, how much over, or if at all, you're going to be over that 260. So that's why it's, kind of a big jump at the end.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's an arrangement that Lextran has had for quite some time.
Who's that with?
The company's name is Adsposure. They're formerly known as Advertising Vehicles, and they're based out of Cincinnati. They're really dominant in the transit advertising market, and they have this type of operation throughout the nation.
Nationwide.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That's awesome.
Any other questions?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So our change in net position was 17 million, and remind me, when we look at our cash flow, was it 2025 or is it 2026 when our expenditures outpace our
2026.
2026. And so this change in net position is our fund balance now.
That basically is how much money, how much more revenue we took in than what we expended. So that will go into our reserves, basically, as we call it, mass transit fund. Yeah.
And then we'll contribute to the years after 2026, or remind me how we budget for, I just keep looking at that year when our expenditures are gonna outpace our revenues, and then knowing, now we're sitting really great, but to continue to have that conversation about future years.
Yeah, we continue to have that, especially with the finance committee that you're on. We continue to look for grant opportunities and analyze the expenses, so.
Yeah. And then property taxes came in 8% over what we had budgeted at.
Over what we had in 2022.
Okay, here are 21 million.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, it is, I'm sorry, it is 8% over what we budgeted, yes, which is very unusual. The highest I've ever seen was 5.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's between 1 and 3, so we were very surprised that it came in that high.
And we budgeted 3.5?
We budgeted 3.5,
For next year as well, 3.5?
Yes.
So that continues to help us that it's coming in that high at 8%
Yes.
growth.
Yes, I don't, based on history, I don't expect it to stay that high, but we were very surprised it came in that high this year.
And then materials and supplies, you already talked about, that's the engine rebuilds?
Materials and supplies are bus parts.
Bus parts.
Yeah, all the, every part we have, they have it looks like an AutoZone store over there. Their inventory, and they have everything in the world you can imagine. But the bus parts, things that used to cost us, $600 are now costing us $900. So we were actually happy to see that it was not more than $300,000 over, because the rate we had seen things, especially some of the electric bus parts and CNG parts and things, the way we had seen those rise, we were watching that constantly.
And then a couple of the other ones that were under, was it under just like the dues, travel, media?
The dues were under budget because of the timing of when the APTA dues fell. The APTA dues are about $36,000, and it crossed fiscal years, so that's why that one's under. And then our media advertising is under. We've been spending a whole lot of time this year concentrating on hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken a lot of their time with pushing job ads and having job fairs and things like that. So that's what we've been concentrating on mostly in the last 10 months or so.
There was also a portion of time in this fiscal year where our marketing and communications role was unfilled. We filled it relatively soon into the start of last fiscal year, but with someone being brand new, getting their feet wet, we didn't quite hit that.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Nikki.
Okay. We have just one action item today, and that is a report from the nominating committee, which consists of, sorry, you were over there, now you're over here. Lady Morris Gonzalez and Judge Thurston, so.
Yes.
take it away.
All right, Mr. Chair, good morning, everyone. We have met as a committee, and we are excited and honored to nominate you, Mr. Chair, to continue serving in your role as board chair, and Ms. Rogers as vice chair in her continued service to this board. We are happy to entertain discussion or take nominations from the floor should they exist.
Paul, I think you're the only one left.
No, I'm good.
So,
Very good.
You want to throw your name in the hat, Paul?
No, ma'am.
So, would maybe you want to make a motion?
I'd be happy to make a motion. So
All right,
moved.
wonderful. You want to say something? Yes. I think that's okay. Is that
Yes.
okay?
Sure.
Procedurally, I think it is. All right, congratulations.
thank you. Thanks for meeting.
Congratulations.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Let's see, I believe we have a short change order report.
We do have a change order report. This change order is being reported for information only. It is not anything that requires board action today. We had one change order with our vendor Paycom. They provide our payroll and HRIS system. The amount of the change was approximately $5,200 annually. And what that is for is Paycom has unrolled a new platform as part of their employee self-serve application called Betty. And Betty,
Why is that funny?
we've had a good laugh as well. We've said,
Okay.
just ask Betty or whatever. So the Betty platform gives employees some more access to their payroll information in real time. It's a way to sort of mitigate payroll errors if if they realize they didn't work a day or they worked a little bit extra. We don't have a tremendous amount of errors. In fact, the person who is mainly responsible for our payroll here on a call with the vendor heard what is the average number of payroll errors at a company, and she said if I had that many errors, I would just quit. She has virtually none, but this kind of gives employees more access to their payroll information in real time. So we're excited to be more transparent about that information with our employees. So again, this is just being reported for information. We have had 2 prior change orders with Paycom and look forward to this. So
Great.
Thank you. Any old business?
I do not have any old business to report
Okay.
or new business. No old or new that I have to report for you today.
Okay, and then proposed agenda items.
We do have a few proposed agenda items, one being a resolution with Kentucky Deferred Comp. We have an existing arrangement with Kentucky Deferred Comp, but they have asked for an updated agreement. We have that in the hands of McBrayer. They're reviewing that right now, and once that is ready, we will get that back before the board. I think it's just really more of a formality and timing. We will have a resolution for committee appointments by you, Mr. Chair, in a coming month. We'll also have a drug and alcohol policy update based on some FTA changes. I know we'll be glad to get that off the agenda and get that through. We will also have a resolution for the public records custodian. I mistakenly left that off the list here, but currently I am designated as the public records custodian. With my departure, I have made note with the agency that I have designated that duty to Mr. Tazaya Bakara. He works in the risk management department. Many of the open records requests that come in center around activities in the risk management department or in the procurement department. So between those folks, they're getting done. He's heavily involved in the public records process anyway, but he will be the public records custodian moving forward, and there'll be a resolution for that next month. And then we will also have a RAMP program update at a future meeting that the board had requested. All right.
I see final remarks.
I do have some final remarks. Yeah, it makes me a little bit sad too. So as you said earlier, today is my last board meeting as Lextran's general manager. And so to the board, my staff, colleagues, and other partners, I see Joey from the MPO is back here. Just thank you for all of the support and confidence that you have placed in me in nearly 14 years here, the last 3 as the general manager. So I came here in 2009 with a lot to learn, and I have been blessed with a number of opportunities and a really great highlight reel. Lots of us laugh and say, nobody's gonna believe the things that we experience or the things that happen here. But we've also had a lot of really great things. We gave out our first of what became many million-mile safe driving awards. Several of the board members have been on hand for some of those presentations. We moved from our previous location at 109 West Loudon, just down the street, here today to our present headquarters, which was something that Lextran had worked on and talked about for more than 10 years. We have implemented compressed natural gas and electric buses in our fleet, and we continue that process, and that's really exciting. We have sent a competitor to the American Public Transportation Association, which is APTA, International Bus Rodeo multiple times. And we have, countless other accomplishments. Lextran made it through the COVID pandemic without missing a single day of service, which is a real testament to our bus operators, street supervisors serving on the front lines, as well as members of our maintenance team at all levels. I'm especially proud of the progress that we have made in recent years towards our fleet replacement program. I think we have 10 buses on order right now and have received about that many in the last few years. We have made significant improvements to our passenger facilities in the community, and we have won more than $18 million in competitive grants in the last 2.5 years, which continues to position Lextran for additional fleet replacement and facilities upgrades. But I want to be sure that I properly share and give credit. No leader does anything alone, and I have had a fantastic team. I was going to get through this. A fantastic team, staff and board. I am a real person. I'm really excited for what the future holds for Lextran. There's a lot more to be done. There are a lot of great accomplishments on the horizon. It has been a real privilege to serve as the general manager. And I just thank you for that. It's been great. I don't know why I'm crying. So thank you for the opportunity and all the support. That's what I got.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
There may be opportunity to change your mind.
We'll take you back whenever you want to come back. And in recognition of your 14 years of service, there is a small reception planned for after this meeting. Thanks to the staff and the leadership for planning that. I'd like to say the board had a hand in it, but we didn't. You all were
We tried.
fantastic. You let us know where to show up and look pretty, so we're good at that. So seeing no closed session, we thank you, Jill, again. We're so appreciative, and we're excited for your future as well as the future of Lextran. So thanks, everybody. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.